welcome to Strictly Sports. I am Jacob Brown, joined here with Stephen Cashman. We're going to do our New York Yankees 2020 season preview. Last season, the Yankees were 103-59. We're going to do it how we always do it: additions, subtractions, lineup, rotation, bench, bullpen, and prospects. And again, like I said at the top of the Rays podcast, Stephen is a Rays fan. I'm a Yankee fan, but I'm going to be dead honest with this team and tell you what I really think about this Yankee squad. I'm not just going to be a homer. So who did the Yankees lose? They actually lost a ton of people. Stephen Tarpley, they traded away to the Marlins. Why? He's a lefty specialist. Won't get that much time anymore because of that. The Yankees have a loaded bullpen. They also got rid of Nestor Cortez Jr. He was used as an opener last year. The Yankees don't really have a spot for an opener anymore. He goes to the Mariners. Greg Bird, first base prospect, ended up being a bust. He goes to Texas in their minor league system. Chance Adams, a starting pitching prospect, traded away to the Royals. He was also a bust. Cameron Maybin, I really respected this guy. Came in last year, got base hits, hit over 300. He went to the Tigers along with catcher Austin Romine. He was in the Yankee system for like a decade. I loved him. I love that he's getting a chance with the Tigers to be a starter. The Yankees lost shortstop Didi Gregorius to the Phillies. He had Tommy John surgery, really struggled in 2019. But before that, he was a borderline top 10 shortstop. They lost reliever Dellin Betances to the New York Mets. That can end up being a really big loss, but I do think the Yankees replaced that with other moves. The big one, though, Jacoby Ellsbury. They finally released Jacoby Ellsbury, the worst contract, one of the worst that I've ever seen. 7 years for a guy that couldn't even play a full 3.5 years out of those 7. Just a terrible contract. Then Edwin Encarnacion left in free agency to the White Sox, and CC Sabathia retired. I'm going to miss him a lot. He was with the Yankees for, I think, from 09 to 19. And then the Yankees signed a few guys to minor league deals. David Hale, Dan Otero, Luis Avalon, Chad Bettis. They might contribute in the bullpen at points. And then they re-signed Brett Gardner. The big addition, though, Garrett Cole, 9 years, $324 million to be the ace of the rotation. So now we look at this lineup, and you could have literally 1,500 different combinations for this Yankees lineup. This is just the one that I'm going with, and I'm also going to give you the lineup with it completely healthy because I think the season, based on what they're saying right now, it might start July 4th. The Yankees were saying that Hicks would be back from his Tommy John surgery at right around mid-July, late July. So I'm just going to put Hicks in this lineup because he's going to be there the majority of the time anyway. So this is how I roll it. I have DJ LeMahieu leading off and playing second base, 146 games last year, 26 home runs, 102 RBIs, 375 WOBA. The season before that, though, he was below league average. You got to recognize that. So who is this guy? Is he MVP level LeMahieu, or is he below league average LeMahieu? Then you have Aaron Judge. He has to stay healthy. 102 games, 27 home runs, 55 RBIs, 382 WOBA. So he's right there with Mookie Betts. But again, has to stay healthy. Then I have Aaron Hicks in that 3-hole. I'm just going to wipe away that 2019. He was injured for most of it. But in 2018, 360 WOBA, 129 weighted run created plus. That's actually really good. That's well above league average. Switch hitter, breaks up the righties in Judge and Stanton. I like a lefty or a switch hitter in there to break up those two righties. That's very important to me. I have Gleyber Torres hitting 5th, 23 years old. He's going to have to switch to shortstop now. 38 home runs, 90 RBIs in 144 games with a 358 WOBA, 125 weighted run created plus. Then Gary Sanchez in the 6-hole. Another guy has to stay healthy. 106 games, 34 home runs. Who knows what he would have done with maybe 25, 30 more games. Then they have Miguel Andujar. He missed all of last season with a shoulder injury, but in his rookie season was amazing. 27 home runs, 92 RBIs with a 361 WOBA and 47 doubles, which set the Yankee record for the most doubles as a rookie. Then I have Luke Voigt in the 8-hole playing first base. This is a guy, when healthy, 360 WOBA, 126 weighted run created plus, and that was even with struggling for the second half. He only had 4 home runs and 12 RBIs in the entire second half last year because he had those core injuries. And then I have Gio Urshela batting 9th and playing third base. He had 21 home runs and 74 RBIs last year, but he came out of nowhere. Before last year, his WOBA didn't go higher than 270, which is horrific. So when you look at this lineup, Steven, there's a lot of guys. They came out of nowhere last season. Maybe they're guys, if they don't do what they did last year, this Yankee lineup could be screwed. But the Yankees also do have guys on that bench, Brett Gardner, Mike Tauchman, Clint Frazier in the minor leagues, that could fill in if some of these guys don't produce as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I look at this lineup, and it's stay healthy. Stay healthy. If you can ride out the storm and really keep things intact. I'm gonna go back off of last year real quick, and this team won 103 games without Miguel Andujar, Luis Severino, Stanton, Sanchez, Judge. Missed considerable amount of time. It's great. It shows you what this team is made of, the depth they have. They can piece guys in and really kind of weather the storm. Going on this year's starting lineup, and there's not a lot of holes there. I mean, 1 through 4. When I say one of the most dominant lineups in the league, if Stanton can come back to his form when he was with Miami and just kind of fix whatever issues he's having with going the other way and just kind of really just getting back to normal, his mindset of the approach to staying home and just really just driving the ball to the middle of the field. Aaron Judge, a tough out to get. If he improves his strikeout percentage, just really cut that in half, and he's will be even more lethal than he is already now. DJ LeMahieu took a massive step last year. Kind of surprised everyone, I think. Just a guy who I was like, every time I watch him play, I'm like, you can't get this motherfucker out. You can't do it. Like, you couldn't pitch around him. I swear. Like, he got one hit against the Rays. And that pissed we were close to a perfect game in the Trop, and he gets the only hit of the game. I'm like, of course he is, but he's a tough out. And if he can produce the same way he did last year, 100 RBI guy again, that's a great guy to have that leadoff spot. He really takes pride in having great at bats. He doesn't go down very easy. And then I look at guys that can be really key role players in this Yankees lineup. Is Gleyber Torres coming back and being the same guy again? Gary Sanchez, one of the best catchers, if not the best catcher when healthy, can throw a ton of guys out. His problem is striking out too. If he can cut down the strikeouts and really have better at bats this year, one of the more dangerous batters in that lineup as well. Luke Voigt staying healthy. He was kind of missing some time there last year, but I look at this Yankees lineup. If Urshela, I don't know what he really is, because he kind of came out of nowhere. He took everyone by storm. Some of my friends called him Fluke Shella, just because of the year he had. But like I said, if you get the same production level that you did with all these guys from the year before, you're in great shape. And you look at the bench, even guys like Mike Ford that took some time in the minors last year. He was up and down a little bit. I like his game as well. Clint Frazier, you have Brett Gardner, Tauchman. So you have some guys there that can really take some time and get some can be role players and giving some guys some time off in that lineup.
Yeah, that's the thing with this roster is you got to look at what are these guys really, because like I said, LeMahieu, 2017 and 18, he was below league average, and even before that, when he was in 2016, he was barely above league average. So this guy literally 327 average, 26 and 102 at home runs and RBIs. That's a huge jump, and I don't know, even as a Yankee fan, I'm sitting here and I'm like, I don't expect that again. I mean, I would say I'd expect out of him probably average at 270 or higher. I would say the home runs will probably go down to like 15 to 20. RBIs probably 60 to 85, because I just don't see him going 26 and 102 again. But I really look at this, and again, you mentioned Gio. I mean, Urshela is great defensively, but like I said, before 2019, he never had a WOBA above 270, and a 270 WOBA is like terrible. I mean, that's a minor league player. So great defensively, but we got to see it again with this bat. The great thing is, though, they have in this lineup that I have Andujar in left field. He started at third base, but they also say he can play first base too. And that's where this Yankee team's really going to show themselves, because I think with the injury problems that Stanton has had, they want him to stay at DH as much as possible. I think they're going to try and put him at DH literally every game if they had their choice. I think they'll split DH between him and Judge, and on the days where Stanton's not DHing, they'll DH Judge and put Stanton in right instead, just so they help both in the injury case. But I think it's between Andujar, Voigt, and Gio in their playing time. If Gio can't play well, you just put Andujar at third, and you put either Gardner or Talkman in left field. If Voit can't play and Duhar goes to first, Gardner or Talkman in left field. So that's what I mean. If Voit continues to struggle like he did in the second half, that's what I mean. So you do have parts to mix and match. So there's leeway here if one of those guys struggles and they're really not the guy that they were in 2019. So that's why I'm not as worried in that department. But you said 1 through 4, this lineup could be amazing. I think it could be 1 through 9. Yeah. 1 through 9, I think it's them, the Dodgers, the Twins, and the A's have the 4 best lineups in baseball. I don't know where the Yankees rank among those 4. That's actually an interesting conversation to start. But Andujar, man, as a rookie, almost had 30 and 100 with almost 50 doubles as a rookie and hit 300. That's a guy that can hit 5th by the end of the year. Then you have Gleyber Torres, 23 years old, hitting almost 40 bombs. Giancarlo Stanton in a down year in 2018, 38 home runs, 100 RBIs. Aaron Hicks had the same exact WOBA and weighted run created plus as Stanton did in 2018. So you're looking at a lineup that has multiple superstar level potential players with guys that, again, if Gio, Voit aren't the guys that you thought they were, you have Brett Gardner and Mike Talkman on that bench that can fill in for those guys. So I really do love the potential with this offense. And you mentioned it too, Mike Ford, Clint Frazier at the minor league level that can fill in if needed. Again, if Voit is, even dips that low, maybe Voigt's a minor league player and you call up Ford for that left-handed thump, because that's actually one thing that the Yankees lack in this lineup is left-handed thump. So good, what are your thoughts on that in terms of the mixing and matching between third base, left field, first base?
Yeah, I mean, I like the way you broke it down and saying like guys can play different positions, and I look at keeping Aaron Judge and Stanton healthy. Guys like Andujar can go and play different positions. So with this Yankees lineup, at the end of the day, you want Judge and Stanton being at their peak playing abilities by September, October range. So having the ability to move guys in to that third base position and keeping them rolling and mixing and matching your matchups is key for this team to stay healthy and be where they want to be in October. I look at the games played for Andujar, Urshela, Torres. These guys are playing roughly they're close to 150 games. Gleyber played 144, Andujar played 149, and Urshela played 132 games. So you're getting a lot of playing time out of these guys, key pieces that you need all year for them to be where you want to be towards the end. And I look at that, and if you keep your stars healthy, like Judge and Stanton, even Aaron Hicks, if he comes back and plays a full slate of games, this team, this ceiling is 110 wins, like we talked about before we got on. But do we see 110 wins? We don't know. You just don't start out with that many wins. It's baseball, the nature, the way it is. We'll see. But this team has so much potential. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, Hicks is the X factor here. If Hicks can come back and be that left-handed bat against right-handed pitchers because he's a switch hitter, if he can break up Judge and Stanton, that's the biggest thing. And that's the reason why I designed this lineup the way I did. I don't like Judge and Stanton hitting back-to-back. There's some people that have Judge and Stanton 2-3. I don't like that. They're both basically the same hitter. I think you need someone to separate them. Same thing. You could very well say that Gary Sanchez should hit 5th and Gleyber should hit 7th. I think Stanton and Sanchez are too similar of a hitter. I'd rather have Gleyber to break them up. Mm-hmm. And same thing with Andujar. You could even see Andujar being the guy in that 5 hole and maybe putting, Gleyber 6, Sanchez 7. Because like I said, Andujar, 27 bombs, 300 hitter, 47 doubles in your rookie year. That's not a 7 hitter. So it's really crazy the potential that this lineup has. But now let's move on to this rotation. So a big thing about it, Luis Severino, he's out for the year. He basically didn't pitch in 2019 either. So he's going to be an interesting case once you get to 2021. But in 2018, you're missing this guy, 10.35 Ks per 9, 3.39 ERA. He's basically a second ace. But they might not have to worry about that because they signed Garrett Cole. In 33 games started last year for the Astros, 2.50 ERA, 2.64 FIP, 13.82 Ks per 9, 2 walks per 9, and 1.23 home runs per 9 for a total of 326 strikeouts That's incredible. Should have won the Cy Young. Bias aside, he had a better year than Verlander anyway. Then 2 in that rotation, James Paxton. Like I mentioned on the Dodgers pod, his FIP is the exact same FIP as Clayton Kershaw at 3.86, 11.11 Ks per 9. So he strikes out more guys than Kershaw too, with 3.29 walks per 9, 1.37 home runs per 9. He also dealt with injury problems as well. And now with this shortened season, he's going to be ready to start. So you don't even have to worry about the injury that would have had him miss probably about the first month and a half of the season. Then Masahiro Tanaka in your 3 spot. The thing with Tanaka, his regular seasons, he's a lot like El Duque. Really amazing in the postseason, but his regular seasons are kind of mediocre. He had a 4.45 ERA. That's not great. 7.37 Ks per 9, 1.38 home runs. So he's not an amazing regular season pitcher, but when you turn it on in the postseason, he's incredible. Then J.A. Happ in the 4 spot, 37 years old last year. He struggled, 4.91 ERA. But in the 3 years before that, 2018, 3.65 ERA, 2017, 3.53 ERA, 2016, 3.18 ERA. So if they can get that guy in the 3.5 range as your 4 starter, that's actually really nice. And then this is the real X factor in this rotation to me, Jordan Montgomery. In 2017, when he pitched, 3.88 ERA as a rookie, coming out of nowhere essentially, in 155 and a third, struck out 8.34, walks at 2.95 with a 40.7 ground ball rate. This is a guy, he looks like a Dallas Keuchel type of pitcher to me. He has the same ERA as Keuchel if you really break it down. So what are your thoughts on this rotation? And by the way, they might be able to mix Domingo Germán in there, but he has a 63-game domestic violence suspension. Michael King might get mixed in there. Number 92 MLB prospect Davy Garcia. Number 88 prospect Clark Schmidt as well. There are also guys that might mix in there as well. So what are your thoughts on this rotation, Steven?
I like it a whole lot, and single-handedly they won the offseason by getting Garrett Cole. They landed the best free agent out there, and that's a scary thing to see him every 5th day if you're an opposing team. But the depth of the rotation too is good. James Paxton, when he's dialed in, he's hard to muster up any sort of run production. Masahiro Tanaka, like you said, he has average off seasons, let's say. I'm not off regular seasons, but when he gets into that second level and gets to the postseason, he really dials it in. I think that's when he really thrives because every pitch matters to him, and I think he grooms himself throughout the regular season to mold him to get to that dominant level in the postseason. So 1 through 3, they're really really solid, and you go down to J.A. Happ if he stays healthy again this year. Jordan Montgomery, who I like a lot. That's a guy who followed throughout, his minor league, career. I mean, he's had been in the league for 3 years now. 17 was his first outing, but he really thrives on the pitching to contact, and that's what I love. He's efficient. He throws you the ground ball, rolls up a lot of double plays. He's not concerned a whole lot about strikeouts. He just wants to get you outs and get you to the 7th inning and set up your bullpen. So that's a really, really good X factor to have in your rotation at the 5th spot. Potentially, give him another year, and this guy could be really lights out. And behind him, you have Germán, who's suspended for 63 games, but he was really rolling there last season when things were getting going for them. But having him out will hurt a little bit, but that's another guy. Once you get him back, you have tons of pitching at your disposal. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, I think, that's going to be really interesting to see what happens when Germán does come back, because do they move Happ into the bullpen at that point? Do they move Montgomery into the bullpen? I actually think Germán might be a little screwed, because if you really look at his stats, his FIP was 4.72. And before this, he was never a prospect, even in the Yankee system, which, by the way, we have the Yankee system ranked as the worst minor league system in baseball. And Germán wasn't even a top prospect in the Yankee system. So this is a guy, I think he just came up, went on a nice little run, and it was a little bit overrated. I think Montgomery's the guy that should stay in the rotation. And I think Happ, especially based off of September for Happ, because in September, I believe Hap's ERA was in the ones. So he kind of went back to who he usually was. If Hap is the guy he was and Montgomery is 2017 Montgomery, Herman's going to find himself in the bullpen because, I mean, there's no reason why he should kick anyone out based on his 2019. And again, you look at some of these guys, you know, they do have Davy Garcia and Clark Schmidt as really legitimate pitching prospects. So you look at the future, Paxton and Tanaka are on contract years, and J.A. Happ is on a contract year. So those two guys are guys you look at 2021, they're probably in that rotation. So now we move into that bullpen, and this is where it gets interesting too. So two of those spots are kind of open because of the injury to Severino. I think personally they'll go to Tyler Lyons and David Hale. They were two guys that were relied on kind of just to eat up those innings in there where you're leading by 5 runs or losing by 5 runs, and you don't want to waste your higher level guys in those innings where you can kind of use a guy like a Lyons to just eat up innings. So those are those two guys, but this is where it gets good for them. Chad Green, maybe a little bit of a down year, 4.17 ERA, but strikeouts per 9 were still 12.78. In 2018, his ERA was 2.50. So I love Chad Green, and I also think he was used as an opener in 2019. Now that I think he'll be in the bullpen full time, he's going to get basically back into his role, back into a rhythm instead of going back and forth between opener and bullpen. That's kind of tough from a mindset standpoint. They have Tommy Kahnle in there, 30 years old, 3.67 ERA, 12.91 Ks per 9. Zach Britton, 1.91 ERA. Then Adam Ottavino, 1.90 ERA with 11.94 Ks per 9. But he also walks a lot at 5.4 per 9. And then Aroldis Chapman, 37 saves, 2.21 ERA, 13.42 Ks per 9, and 0.47 home runs per 9 as well. And then my X factor in this bullpen is Jonathan Loaizaga. This is a guy, he throws gas as a starting pitcher, basically throws 100 as a starting pitcher with like 4 other pitches. If you can get him into that bullpen, maybe take a pitch or two off that repertoire, he's a guy that could throw 100 with a breaking pitch and possibly be that next Dellin Betances out of that bullpen. So what do you think about this bullpen, Steven?
It's insane. It's scary. I hate it. I hate it being a Rays fan because once you get to, if you're not either tied or in the lead by the 6th inning, 7th inning, the game's virtually over. And that's just the way it is. Is these guys are so dominant. You look at Kahnle and Green. I mean, he was, like I said, he was an opener and had to get transitioned back and forth between being an opener and going back into the back end of the bullpen. That's, for a mindset wise, it's really tough to kind of, you don't know what your role is. And for him to get back into that back end of the bullpen and here's your job, this is what you're going to do, I think he'll thrive in that role. And then you got Ottavino and Chapman, Britton. So 7, 8, 9, you really have a ton of pieces at your disposal where you can really just shut a game down. And how do you pronounce his name? Loaizaga?
Jonathan Loaizaga.
Loaizaga, yeah. I saw him a few times last year. When he pitched against Tampa, it was just it was almost like it was 1, 2, 3, and the fastest happening I've ever seen. He really, if he critiques his stuff just a tad bit and really just refines it, like I said, you're not going to be missing much in a Betances loss. And he could be your setup guy for Chapman. Imagine having a guy right there, 1, 2, him and Chapman coming in 8, 9. I mean, that's brutal. And you have enough pieces in this bullpen where if a game goes to extras, you have guys that can stretch out and really finish a game off strong for them. So with the starting pitching and this bullpen, it's just, they're one of the most complete teams like we've talked about time in and time out. Them and the Dodgers have the most complete all-around 360. It's almost unfair in a way having to face this team in a 3-game series. I look at it this way. You have 3 solid starters going into the weekend. If you're facing Cole, Paxton, and Tanaka, if you're a team, you're just looking not to get swept. Take one. So you have a really good lineup there and just a great pitching staff in general.
Yeah, and I'll address this too. I mean, Tanaka, the ERA might be a little high, but there's times in the regular season his ERA is skewed too because he'll have some really bad outings, but there's usually, 2-3 games a year where he'll go out for 8 innings and just give up 1 run, So it's it almost seems like just watching him every year, he has literally like a yearly outing every year in Toronto where he just goes complete game shutout. It literally every year he's got like a shutout against the Blue Jays, but obviously you can't count on that. I'm just saying from observation, I've seen that. But another stat here, I mean, I don't know what the exact record was, but that 6, 7, 8, 9 punch for the Yankees of Canely, Britton, Ottavino, Chapman, I think they were 32-1 when all four of them pitched in one game. So it's basically unstoppable. And when you have, and obviously bullpen guys can't pitch every day. So if one of them pitched 2 days in a row, you throw Chad Green in for the sixth inning that day. If two guys pitch 2 days in a row, well, then you throw Loizaga and Green in the sixth and seventh innings, and you don't really blink an eye. And they also have guys at the minor league level too, like a Ben Heller, who they got in the Andrew Miller trade and the Clint Frazier trade. He's another guy, throws 98, 99. He might be a big league contributor, and he could pitch in the sixth or seventh inning if those guys have pitched multiple days. But you basically have an unbeatable 6, 7, 8, 9 for the playoffs. And in the regular season, you still have 2 or 3 other 6, 7, 8, 9 combos that you can go with if some of those guys have pitched 2 days in a row and can't go that day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's where give them the edge on most teams because you have the ability to rest guys. You don't have to tax a bullpen so early, and with the lineup they have, they can score a ton of runs on any given night. And you have some guys that are middle of the pack in your bullpen that you can really go, hey, just if we're up by 5 runs, take the charge here, and you're going to finish it out, eat some innings up. But in a tight, close game, you can really just roll out a Chad Green, Ottavino, and Britton, Chapman. There's the arsenal is there. You have so many bullets you can use, and it's almost unfair because it's a lockdown situation. Once you get to the seventh inning, if you're trailing by 1, 2 runs, it's almost lights out. You're not going to muster up 4 runs on that bullpen every single night. So it's just an insane bullpen. If they all can stay healthy as well, that's the key too for this whole team. Is just health. If they stay that way, lights out.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's literally the Yankees have to be praying about health and about what is that combination going to be between Andujar, Voit, Urshela, Gardner, Tauchman. How are they going to mix those 5? Who are going to be the 3 starters out of those 5, and how are they going to platoon them? I think that's going to be a huge thing. And then, I also didn't mention Kyle Higashioka and Tyler Wade on the bench as well. They're on there because they need a backup catcher and a backup shortstop. So those 2 are not going to go to the minor leagues. Even though you might need a Mike Ford for that power bat, you still need a backup shortstop because there's no one other than Gleyber Torres that can do that on this roster. So, maybe you could say Rosel Herrera makes it over Tyler Wade or Tyro Estrada makes it over Tyler Wade, but I personally think it'll be Wade. And maybe Chris Iannetta, a vet, might make it over Higashioka, but I think it's Higashioka's job to lose. And then I also didn't mention Luis Sessa is a guy that eats up innings in that bullpen as well. Kind of that, game where you're winning by 5 runs, you need someone to pitch 3 innings. He's your guy. So you look at this minor league system, I'll just brush over it quickly. They're the worst system in baseball according to our GES system. 78 APR, which means their prospects average out to be 78th best in baseball. That's not great, and their TPRP is only 20. Not great. So this is a guy, man, Jason Dominguez. Learn this name. He is 17 years old, switch hitting outfielder. So he's as old as my little brother, who you're going to hear on this podcast in a few minutes with my dad. That's how old Jason Dominguez is, and he's the number 54 prospect in baseball. There are people saying he might be the next Mike Trout. I've seen video of this guy in the batting cages. His swing is crazy good. Like, you just look at it, and the pop off that bat is crazy. And then they have Clark Schmidt, number 88 prospect, huge sinker ball pitcher. His sinker gets up to 95, 96, kind of like Yanni Chirinos, and he has a nice slurve pitch as well. And then, like we mentioned, they have Davy Garcia as well, and then a bunch of other prospects as well, but they're not listed in the top 100. So when you look at the offseason grade here, Steven, I think you already said they won the offseason, and you have them winning the division. I don't know if I have the Yankees winning the offseason, but yeah, I'd have to give them an A2. You got that ace, and that's kind of how it's looking here for this New York Yankees squad. We're going to send it over to me, my dad, and my brother as we continue this analysis of the Yankees 2020 season. You can hear me and Steven break down the American League playoffs on tomorrow's pod. Now you can enjoy this bonus part of this New York Yankees 2020 season preview. We just got done doing some pre-show stretches behind us, and my brother still messing with us over here. But we're going to talk about the New York Yankees here, and we just got done, me and Steven, going over everything, over the lineup, the rotation, and I know you guys are just as up to speed as we are, so no need to go over anything like that. So let's just talk about here. We keep wondering, how are the Yankees going to start their players? I mean, we have this logjam here between third base, first base, and left field, between 3 or 4 players. You have Stanton, Voit, Gio Urshela, Miguel Andujar. How do you guys think the Yankees are going to balance those 4 in the lineup? We'll start with Zachary.
I think if you want to start at the hot corner, and over time you see the comparison between Gio Urshela and Miguel Andujar, and at the hot corner you kind of want your best defensive set, and that to me probably is Gio Urshela. He's not as good with the bat, but he still gets on base and he still can get some RBIs, and I just feel like Andujar is just not up to speed up at the corner to where you can put him over there instead of Gio Urshela.
Yeah, I think that'll resolve itself like anything else. They'll know soon enough whether or not Gio's bat plays consistently. He's got 1 year under his belt of consistent performance, and obviously we're basing this on the understanding that at some point we'll have an extended amount of games to figure this all out. But I think that, as with everything else, it reveals itself over time based on performance. I read something the other day that was very interesting. Everybody was getting on Andujar about his defense and what have you, and he has some issues with his feet and his arm slot and all those things. But Nolan Arenado, who is generally acknowledged to be the best third baseman on the planet defensively, had more errors in the same year that Andujar did in 2018, or it was 2019, one of the two. But he made 16 errors to Andujar's 15. So maybe the defense is overblown. We know that the Andujar's bat plays. So really the pressure's only on Gio. It's really not on Andujar, because we know Andujar comes with a tool that plays and that is really critical.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to side with both of you probably here, because there's, different arguments to both sides. I mean, you look at Gio Urshela, yes, he hit .314 with 21 home runs, 74 RBIs last year, but you look at the season before that, we mentioned this earlier, his WOBA was never even higher than 270, which is well below league average. So this is a guy that definitely needs to come out here and do it year 2. I've said throughout these podcasts, you need to do it 2 years in a row for me, and then I trust that you're really that player. But now we look at Luke Voit here, starting first.
One more point on that, on the Gio thing. The other point here is that Gio's 28 years old, right? So he didn't reveal himself to be a starting third baseman in the major leagues until that age. That typically indicates something. So was last year a freak aberration type of thing, or was it real? They'll figure it out. But that's why my money's kind of on Andujar long term, because he did it when he was 24, 25 offensively, and he's got room to grow.
Well, you talk about that age, and 28 to 33 are your real critical prime years. So sometimes, it doesn't look too great when it starts at 28, but when you see a younger player who, yes, has a season, who knows if that's a fluke because it's been 1 year for him and then he gets injured. 28 to 33 are your prime years. Maybe he's really settling in, and you really just got to see how it plays out in 2020 if we have a season.
Yeah, absolutely. So like we just said, there's two sides to this, but you look at Luke Voit too, and this is another guy, same situation as Gio, older age, 28 years old, and Voigt's actually 29 now. Last season, even with that second half where he only had 4 home runs, 12 RBIs, his WOBA was still 360, which is significantly above league average. So this is a guy, Luke Voit, and I know, Dad, we've talked plenty about Voit. He might be a little similar to some of these hitters in the sense that it's home run, walk, or strikeout, but at the same time, his stats are right there with 2018 Stanton, 2018 Hicks, and 2019 Gleyber Torres. So where do you see Luke Voit fitting into this equation?
It remains to be seen. A lot of it comes down to what you want your lineup to look like over time. One reality that can't be dismissed is that the Yankees are a very much right-handed laden type of lineup right now, and there's not a lot of guys on the come that would change that. The one exception to that possibility is Mike Ford. Now that might sound a little bit counterintuitive, but you're talking about a guy that has done it at every level. He's a little bit older, yes, but he's a lefty bat in Yankee Stadium. Far smaller sample size than you have with anybody else that's in the equation for first base, with the exception of really Andujar. But still, I would say ultimately, I'm not a big fan of Voit, and I don't know enough about Ford, but the lefty bat intrigues me, and that's why I would give that some time to figure itself out.
Well, I know Zachary over here, Mike Ford is one of his favorite players, and I'll just let you have the mic here about Mikey Ford.
Well, as you've seen in recent years, the Yankees have sort of a reputation of making guys that really just come out of nowhere, and they fit in that lineup. Example, Ronald Torreyes. Who's ever heard of him? He comes up, hits .398 in 40 games, gets 40 ribbies, 12 home runs. It just doesn't happen anywhere else. But then you see someone come up like Mike Ford. Yes, not a big sample size, maybe 25, 30 games. Is that so?
Yeah, around that.
And then you just see him and he comes up, he hits 360-ish, home runs, ribbies, left and right. And it's just, when you see Voit and he was the backup in St. Louis and he just really just had that, it kind of seemed like too much, it would seem too good to be true. And when you see that lefty bat, like my dad said, it's intriguing because you need to add something like that to the lineup.
Yeah, I mean, that's all great and all, but the problem is here is that the only way that Ford makes this roster when everyone's healthy, that is, because I think when the season starts, it's either going to be Clint Frazier or Mike Ford as that final bench guy. But once Aaron Hicks gets back, Ford's going to have to either count on an injury, which with this roster, injuries are expected. Someone's going to get injured at some point. Maybe that's a natural way that Ford gets on here, but he's going to maybe need a Voit to slump or a Gio to slump to even get on this roster, because you look at this bench, Gardner's not going anywhere, Mike Tauchman probably not going anywhere, and even if he did, Clint Frazier would probably be the guy that replaces him, and then you have to have your backup catcher in Kyle Higashioka and your backup shortstop with Tyler Wade. So Ford's really going to have to wait for an open opportunity here.
Is that true even with the added guy on the roster?
Yeah. With the added man on the roster, you have to have 4-man benches, 8-man bullpen. So a 4-man bench, Ford just doesn't fit with Aaron Hicks back.
Yeah, it's there's some similarities here with the Andujar and Gio situation, which is, I think that both Ford and Voit, now that LeMahieu is destined for second base exclusively, at least according to what the plans are.
Yeah, that's definitely the plan.
Yeah, so you're looking at a situation where Voit and Ford can kind of battle it out in the early season. Hicks at best is June, I think, July, in that time frame. So if they get started maybe there's a month there where you can figure out between Voit and Ford who you want. I'm Yankee Stadium, the lefty, that always is appealing. Ford's got a patient eye, a lot of power. I never knew this, but recently I found out that he was Player of the Year.
Wow.
He went to Princeton and was a pitcher, and it was a pitcher and Player of the Year in his senior year. So one of those under the radar guys that might just have some some ability to really kind of get himself entrenched in this process.
And Zachary, your opinion is that Mike Ford is just goated.
Yeah, Mike Ford is the definition of a dad on the Yankee roster. He comes up out of nowhere, sets the tone, comes out hitting dingers, driving in runs, and like my dad said, Hicks not coming in until June or July. That gives a lot of games for someone to come out and just really show what they can do between Voit or Ford, and whoever wins the battle is your first baseman.
Now, I will say, Dad, adding on to your point there about the expanded rosters, I thought you were asking specifically about the original deal, which was going to be 26-man rosters, but with the extended season, there's going to be way big extended rosters, they're saying. So maybe Ford does get on there because of this coronavirus situation.
Yeah, the other thing that Ford's got going for him that no other Yankee can really claim, he's like the only fat guy, I think, in the entire organization at every level. I mean, a fat guy is always welcome in a clubhouse, right? So bring one on, see what he does. It's maybe motivation for other guys to say, I don't want to ever look like that, and I'll work out harder. But you got to love a fat guy.
And the other surprising thing is we've been talking mostly about offense between the two, but when Ford came up, his glove really showed. A lot of digs, diving plays, just like something that you wouldn't expect out of a guy that looks like he's 300-pound lineman, and he can just move across the line and towards second base. Like,
yeah, the other point on Voit, I remember we talked about that scout, right? Who said that when Voit came up in whatever it was, 2018, and really killed it, he got that. This scout said that he got away from everything that led to that. Typically, right? The approach. He was an up the middle type of approach guy, and then he tried to jack everything after that. So Voigt's got to figure out, who he is. And he hasn't done that yet. I think he's got 160 something games under his belt. So it's an interesting question.
For sure. And, just to repeat Ford's stats in the big leagues, 50 games, 12 homers, 25 RBIs. At AAA, 79 games, 23 home runs, 60 RBIs. So this is a guy, we're not making it up here. He's got tons and tons of power. So now we move on to this rotation. And, Severino's injured, guys. I mean, that was a big piece of this rotation. And now you look at it, and everyone has to move up a spot. So now instead of having Severino in your 2 spot, it's James Paxton. Now Tanaka's your 3 guy. That makes J.A. Happ a definitive member of this rotation. And Brian Cashman said basically, in a lot of words, that Happ would have been traded if Severino hadn't been injured. So you look at these 4-5 spots. You have Happ, Jordan Montgomery, Domingo Germán once he comes back from suspension, because he still has to serve that full suspension. You have Michael King, Davy Garcia, Clark Schmidt. So who are you guys looking at just 2020-wise? How do you think those 4-5 spots in the rotation are going to pan out?
well, with the whole situation with Corona, the season's starting to look kind of like a testing season. You see that they might merge divisions, and that's where the real question is, how do prospects play into this? And I feel like Happ, he's around a high 3 to low 4 ERA. Maybe you give someone like Davy Garcia a shot, because you saw him in the futures game, looked really bright, had good minor league stats. It's just, that's someone you got to look at instead of someone like J.A. Happ, who's he's just getting too old and just not doing enough.
It's a really great point. Like, what does this season ultimately mean? The Yankees. The Yankees heading into a normal 2020 wasn't really so much necessarily about what they had, but what their direct competition in the division did not have, right? So Boston is decimated to a large extent. If you look at that rotation, there really isn't one, especially with Sale going down. Offensively, they're always going to be a threat. Those guys are scary, but again, they lose Mookie Betts. So Boston is not Boston from the last several years. Tampa Bay is always dangerous, but the reality is that it was more about what the Yankees it was more about what the competition did not have. That changes now. If you've got Washington in their division, that's got maybe the best top 3 in all of baseball. So the Yankees rotation is that much more critical. Losing Severino becomes that much more of an issue. Who I'd love to see play out, to your point, Zachary, I'd love for one of the young guys to demonstrate. And I'm not a big Montgomery fan. A guy who's throwing junk at 92, 95. It's not what gets me up in the morning. For me, I'd like to see Schmidt, throwing his 95 mile an hour sinker. Devi throwing his mid 90s fastball. That gets me
Mid to
going.
high too.
Yeah, So those, I'd like to see those guys reveal themselves, but we'll see.
Because in a tester season like this, do you really just want a tenured guy going out there just throwing his 5 innings a game, 3-4 runs, or do you want to see someone like David Garcia maybe prove himself out and earn a spot in the rotation?
Yeah, and the problem is, though, J.A. Happ, they're paying a lot of money. Jordan Montgomery, this is a guy they need to figure out who he is. They might need to give him a rotation spot first before they give Davey and Clark Schmidt those chances, because you have a guy in Jordan Montgomery, and you actually look at his stats from 2017. This is a dude that is right around where Dallas Keuchel's been, not only with the ERA and the strikeout numbers, but his ground ball rates are right around where Dallas Keuchel's is. If he can improve on that, I really do think, I'm really high on Montgomery. I know you're not, Dad. He's a guy that mixes his pitches to contact. You don't need to blow away guys in this league anymore. As long as you're pitching to contact, you're pretty much good. Case in point with Dallas Keuchel, he won a Cy Young doing that, and CC Sabathia was able to extend his career by multiple years doing that. So do you think there is room for Jordan to kind of improve here?
There always is. The only thing is that I think guys that have to pitch to contact at that age, they get figured out. So in other words, Sabathia was accustomed to throwing 100, and then he figured out how to throw 90 and be effective, right? So that's after whatever it was, 12, 15 years in the league. understanding his own capabilities, the strike zone, hitter's tendencies, all of those different variables. Montgomery doesn't have that. So Montgomery is going to have to win with Sabatia's stuff with no experience. And I think the league hitters figure out non-stuff guys a lot sooner. We've got a very small sample size with Montgomery. He wasn't anyone you game plan around going into a series against the Yankees from a couple of years ago. So, I wish him the best. But at the end of the day, I think velocity in this day and age, velocity, movement, spin, all that stuff plays more than a guy 24, 25 figuring out location. When the league catches up to location, you generally get your ass kicked.
And the other thing on that is when you see someone like Keuchel, he has a much larger arsenal than Montgomery does. Montgomery's more of a two-pitch pitcher. You see his knuckle.
No, he's got more than two. He's got the curveball,
he's
slider,
got 4
changeup.
pitches,
Yeah.
But the 2 main pitches that he ever uses was his fastball and his knuckle curve. Nothing else really was a put-out pitch for him. And usually, like guys like that get figured out. Keuchel, he's got a split, he's got knuckle curve, he's got slider, he's got all the tools in the arsenal, just like Tanaka does, and just Montgomery doesn't.
And maybe long-term Keuchel might be overplayed. I mean, he had a good window there, right? A few years. We all know everybody goes to Houston and sort of figures out again, or figures out for the first time how to be a great pitcher. Keuchel had a nice run there, 2-3 years, was it? I mean, we're not talking about a guy who had 10, 12 years of extended success, right?
Right. No.
No. So you're talking about a situation where he went to Houston, the Gurus got a hold of him, he really excelled, and he's not a number 1 or 2 on any staff anywhere right now. He's a supplemental guy, and so I don't, if he turns out to be if Montgomery turns out to be Keuchel from 4 or 5 years ago, then I'll eat my shirt. But right now, I don't see that.
Was it Montgomery?
Yeah, that's another point. That's a good point. Jordan is also coming off surgery, so he had a big arm surgery, and who knows how he comes back from that.
The record usually is the young lefties that get Tommy John early in their careers. It doesn't look too bright.
We'll see.
And we could touch on this bullpen too, but we already discussed that, Steven and I, about how that would work. There's really not much competition here and who's going to make it and who's not. But this is a point that I was talking to you about the other day, Dad, and we kind of had some interesting thoughts on it. DJ LeMahieu, and here's the thing, he had an MVP level year. I love this year, 26 home runs, 102 ribbies, hit 327. That's all great. But for the 2 years before that, he was below league average based on WOBA and weighted run created plus. The year before that, he was just barely above league average. So this is a guy, you could say all you want about DJ. I know he's had a batting title. He's won a Gold Glove. He's an incredibly talented player, gets the bat to the ball. We saw it last year. But was it kind of a fluke in a way? Because he went from below league average, barely above league average, to an almost MVP level player in 1 year.
Look, I think WOBA ultimately and WRC, maybe I'm entirely wrong about this, but I think those are also impacted by the role that an individual is supposed to play within a lineup, I think, right? So in the sense that if you're trying to do different things to supplement other people in your lineup, maybe you're not doing the things that benefit WOBA and WRC. Power numbers, things along those lines, right? So that those things contribute to those two metrics. Is that correct?
They contribute, but WOBA's not based. Again, WOBA's meant to put an even playing field on every hitter based on if you were playing an even defense. Yes, slugging's in there. Everything's in there.
So that's my point. If slugging is baked into WOBA and somehow impacts WRC plus, then maybe LeMahieu, due to the injuries on the Yankees last year, was forced to change his game, right? Maybe without Judge and Stanton in the lineup for extended periods of time, he said, I've got to be the guy that steps up here in a more dominant run-producing role. We're not talking about a 22-year-old here. We're talking about a guy in, I think, his early 30s.
Yep.
He's got a good record of hitting for average, which is not a big metric that impacts WOBA or WRC beneficially. I don't know if you can understate his value to the team last year or diminish the possibility that he'll be just as valuable next year. I can't write a guy off like that. I mean, I'd write off a Gio a lot faster than I would LeMahieu because Gio again's got 20 minutes in the big leagues, and LeMahieu is a professional baseball hitter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not just sitting here saying, DJ's going to go back to the player that he was. I'm just saying, is he that 330, 30, and 100 guy? I don't think so. He probably goes back down to earth a little bit, maybe 270 to 290, 15 to 20 home runs, 60 to 80 RBIs as opposed to 30 and 100. I mean, again, like I said, that's an MVP level player. What are your thoughts on LeMahieu, Zachary?
I feel like his mentality was one of the big things that rubbed off on the Yankees. I know this might be a sort of a stretch, but what intrigued me about LeMahieu was his mentality was similar to Jeter's in the fact working the count, and he had that in and out swing that always plays in New York. That in and out swing, drive it to right, and you have the short porch, and I feel like that rubbed off on other guys in the lineup. Started working the count. People like Hicks, who are usually your 2 pitch at bat kind of guys, start working the count, seeing out the curve, seeing out the junk, and then finally getting that pitch they like, and that's why Hicks had such a blowout year. And I feel like even if he's not that 330 guy, he's still driving in runs, he's putting the ball in play, he's moving guys over, and that's what the Yankees really missed for a stretch there in the playoffs, those guys that could just move a run over instead of trying to jack it out at 450.
That's a really great point. I mean, how many Yankees throughout that lineup don't try to jack every pitch, right? So there's a room. I will to my dying day, I'll say there's a room for that kind of approach, even in today's world where launch angle and all these other advanced metrics impact your perceived value far more than they used to. So I think there's value to a guy who doesn't strike out 30% of the time, right? I mean, you look at Judge the other day. I looked at his stats. 30% of the time. If Judge is 30, what is Stanton? Like 70%? I mean, these guys, Sanchez they gotta have ridiculous strikeout numbers, and so having a guy who may not strike out guaranteed 1.5 times per game will have a beneficial impact on the rest of the team. Yeah,
for sure. And we're talking about Hicks and all these guys and Stanton. I designed my lineup specifically. I like separating Judge and Stanton. 2, 3, 4. I like having someone in the middle. I wanted to ask you guys. You could either put Hicks in the middle when he's healthy because of that switch hitter against righties, that left-handed bat to the left-handed power bat to split up Judge and Stanton, who again they're the same type of hitter. Or you could theoretically put Glaber there, similar advanced stats to Hicks, but that's 3 righties in a row, not necessarily. Well, yeah, it would be 4 in a row total, yeah, but you're right about that. But he's a guy that doesn't necessarily walk a lot, has some of the same types of strike, and maybe not as bad as Judge and Stanton, but he certainly swings at his bad pitches at times. So what do you guys think? When everyone's healthy, is Hicks your 3-hitter or is Glaber your 3-hitter?
I think Hicks for sure. Because just like LeMahieu gets on a lot to lead off games, and Hicks as a lefty, and you want your 3-hole hitter. It's kind of been blown over the years, but your 3-hole guy is usually your power guy. Glaber, yeah, he hit a good amount of home runs, but
38, yep.
Yeah, but you see Hicks, and that's all he really goes for. And when you see that lefty bat with the short porch, he can really just start driving and sweeping in runs when people like your Judge and your LeMahieu guys that have great OBPs just get on early in the game, and that's how you really start rallies. And I feel like someone like Glaber strikes out a decent amount, doesn't really walk, and sometimes doesn't put the ball in play enough to where Hicks really, he's just that guy that's going to drive you in runs.
And Hicks walks too, 366 on base compared to the 234 average in 2018. What about you, Dad?
I think all roads lead back to Mike Ford.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you put a big lefty bat between Judge and Stanton, 2 statuesque guys with a big fat guy in the middle. I think visually that plays. So
I would say, yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually, no.
So we got a Mike.
I'd love to be. I would love for it to be Ford, right? But that's ridiculous. I don't think it's going to play that way. I think Hicks is the guy. I agree with Zachary. I think early on in the year, if Gardner turns out to be 75% of the psycho that he turned out to be last year, and that last year plays this year, he makes sense because he's
a left-handed bat,
guy,
right?
Breaks that up. I don't like Glaber on the 3-hole. I mean, I just think it's more of the same. It'll be if you put Judge, Glaber, and Stanton together, they have the identical approach.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They hack for the fences. They're never gonna go with a pitch, so to speak. Judge being the maybe difference with that, which is ironic because he's can hit the ball out anywhere. But I don't like Glaber in the 3 spot, and Sanchez has destroyed any chance he has of being that guy for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I have Sanchez in the 6 hole, and if Andujar is who he was in 2018, then I think Sanchez might hit 7th or 8th by the end of the year, especially if Gio's still hitting 314, which who knows if that happens. We've discussed that already. But yeah, I mean, I just look at this lineup. I think it's complete. I really do. But Then I looked at these ages too, and this is something Steven and I forgot to touch on with him too. These ages are actually kind of getting up there, not in the old, Derek Jeter, Jorge Posada from the 2010s eras, but you're looking at these guys, DJ LeMahieu, 31, Aaron Judge, 28, Aaron Hicks, 30 years old, Stanton, 30 years old, Gary Sanchez, 27, Luke Voigt, 29, Gio, 28. How long do you have here? 3, 4, 5 years of this group of guys?
Well, this is definitely the time, because these are all of their prime years set basically in the same 5-year radius, that 28 to 33 age. And this is really where you got to take advantage of the lineup that you have, because you see the Twins and you see the White Sox. They're more young and upcoming. They haven't hit their prime yet mostly. You want to take advantage of kind of this tenured prime approach instead of that young, like, we're just trying to make something happen, make something special happen, like the Royals did back in the day. And you just want to take advantage of these guys in their prime.
Yeah, the Yankees are. I would say, to put a term on it, the Yankees are a middle-aged baseball team, right? So they're not young, they're not old. So I'm not talking about general middle age of 50s in America. I'm talking about for professional athletes, especially in baseball. In hockey, they'd be ancient in today's world, right? But as a baseball team, they are square in the middle of that middle-aged category. They are relying on guys that are no longer up and coming. They're no longer young, where you can give them a year or two to kind of figure things out. This team has a lot of pressure on it. A lot of pressure that they applied themselves through injury and through lack of performance, and maybe because some people weren't playing the game the right way, which is another discussion for another time. But referring to Houston there.
Yeah, you don't have to refer to that at another time. We could actually all talk about this too. So let's just get into it. Astros, what are your thoughts?
I think, listen, in politics, it's never the crime, it's the cover-up, right? So people have lost their political careers not necessarily for what they do or did, but because they try to hide it, and then they don't handle the fallout properly. And I think that defines Houston here. They did everything within their power to deny. The investigation clearly indicated that something really nefarious had been done for probably an extended period of time. And then when it was unquestionably the case that they had done something really horrible, the owner starts off with, it doesn't matter. The players that are on the roster don't apologize. They're adamant about this. They're just, to me, it's vile. It's vulgar. The only people with any class associated with Houston right now are the guys that are no longer on the team that once were, that are coming out of the woodwork and saying this was bad. It was McCann and Geddes and and
Ken Giles,
the younger guy that was
Tony Kemp, Mike Fires,
these are the only guys with any kind of class. You made a mistake, a big mistake, really a horrible look for any franchise or any sport. But once you have no means of getting away with it anymore, just eat it and say I'm sorry and move on.
I'd say what really ticked me off in a logistical standpoint was the fact that baseball is a 95% mental game, 5% physical. And when you take away that mental side of the game, that's just something that another team cannot face off against. When you know what's coming, you just take away that mental, you take away that overthinking aspect when you're in the box, and that just makes the game 100 times easier. You give that to any team, you could give that to the Royals of last year. They're making something of it. Any crap team, any shit team you throw out there, if you take away that mental side of the game, this game is so much easier, and you can't play against that.
Wasn't it the owner who said I don't think it really impacted things very much?
Who said that?
The owner.
Yeah, no, he. Well, everyone was. It was a mix. I mean, there was a mix of players. There was a mix of Jim Crane, even Rob Manfred, even a little bit, kind of muddying the waters around the impact on it.
Yeah, I bring that up because Mike Trout is the most vanilla guy on the planet. I don't think he's had a misstep publicly in his career. Ever, right?
Yeah.
So, and he's under the microscope, in a huge media market. And even he came out, I think, he was one of those guys that said I would hit like 600.
Yeah, that's what he said,
I knew what was coming, right? So, like, for Mike Trout to not pull back, I don't think you need any other perspective than the guy at the top of the game saying, listen, he's basically saying, I'm amazing historically anyway, but I would be double of what I am right now if I knew what was coming.
Exactly.
So that just shut up everybody in Houston that has any kind of inclination to keep going down that path.
Well, if there are fans allowed at Yankee Stadium when they're supposed to go there, we're waiting for it. We all are waiting for it. So we are talking about the ages of this Yankee team, though. The one guy that we are all obsessed about right now is Jason Dominguez. We've all been watching videos of him. He's the age of Zachary, who you've been listening to this whole podcast. He's 17 years old. It's pretty crazy. So, Zachary, we'll start with you. What do you think about Jason Dominguez? Some people are saying he might be the next Mike Trout.
He's just the greatest example of a freak of nature. I mean, you see a lot of guys coming out of the Dominican, all the guys that are overseas, but he's just another type of a player. I mean, first at bat coming overseas, he hits a home run at a Yankees practice field 50 feet past the trees, which is about 460-foot bomb against people that are a lot older than him, play him a lot longer than him, and it's just seeing someone my age who doing that in the major leagues makes me kind of feel like shit.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody's got their own skill set to bring to the table. This guy, but you nailed it, right? How many are there in the world? He's a freak of nature. He's 17 years old. You don't find that. The one thing that makes me more confident about prospects in today's day and age is not so much these advanced metrics that measure performance, but it's the metrics that measure their tools, which never used to exist before. So exit velo, all bat speed, all of those things that could never be measured before. It was much more the eye test. The eye test is kind of dead right now, right? So when you've got an entire organization that says, yes, we should spend essentially every dollar we have for international signings on one guy.
Yeah.
And which is what they did with Dominguez. That tells you all you need to know about the kind of the consensus on how freakish this guy is.
So let's finish this up here, and this has been an extended pod, and we thank you if you've been listening to this whole thing, and we're going to get into it here. Our World Series pick. So I think we can assume at this point we're not getting an AL East. It's not going to be the same format that it usually is. Right now, I'm just going to predict based off of the current plan that's out there. Again, it's basically like every day we're getting a new format, a new realignment theory. But as of right now, it's 3 divisions, 10 teams each, and the Yankees would be in the same division as the Washington Nationals, who just won the World Series, the Tampa Bay Rays, and the crosstown rival New York Mets. And then other than that, there's a collection of good teams, but not at the level of those other 4. If you're looking at those 4, I still think the Yankees are better than the Nationals, better than the Mets, better than the Rays. What about you guys?
Well, I feel the Nats are a good team, but losing Rendon was a big piece to that team. You see the Mets, younger team, they're doing what the Yankees were doing about 3 or 4 years ago, starting to grow the bullpen, get some young guys, some young bats, as Pete Alonso, and then you see the Rays, and you just ask yourself, how far can that team go with the whole opening strategy? And it doesn't look too logical or like something that can play out a full year going into the World Series. I feel like the Yankees definitely top that division.
I think really, when you break it down, I'll echo what Zachary said on a number of different levels. I think the Rendon piece really hurts Washington, because now that lineup is essentially going to be relying on a 20-year-old and Trey Turner, right?
Yeah, we've gone over it. I personally think the Nationals would have won the NL East if it had been a division, because I looked at kind of the replacements they mixed in there, and they're better than you would think. But yeah, the Rendon loss is still enormous, regardless.
The one thing you can, Strasburg going back there, they've got 3 arms that are
elite.
So they're, you got 3 number one number. You got a 1, 2, 3 there that arguably all 3 of them could be number ones on other staffs, and on high performing staffs, not just the also-rans. So that's why Washington's going to be in this thing in a big way, just because pitching counts.
And who knows what Juan Soto's going to be again? Because when you take out Rendon, who's getting on base, and Juan Soto trying to drive people in like him, it takes away a big piece and kind of hurts the heart of the team.
I agree. Soto might be the second coming in 5 years, right? In other words, we might look back in 5 years and go, well, there was nothing to worry about there. But he's 21 years old. it may be tough for him to repeat, but he is probably just a generational talent that you don't have to worry too much about. But even if he is what we think he is, again, he's undermanned.
His stats, I think he is one of those great players. I mean, his stats are better than Ronald Acuna's, and generally around the casual fan, everyone really thinks that Acuna is the better player.
Right.
It's Soto, but you're right. I mean, Rendon leaving, those stats might go down a little bit.
Yeah, he's the guy, right? And Trey Turner's not, I haven't dug into the numbers the way you have, but Trey Turner's not like he's got Mike Trout.
No, he's, to just tell you, I mean, his advanced stats are exactly the same as Eric Thames, first baseman from Milwaukee that they just got. That's not an insult. I mean, Eric Thames hit 22 bombs, but still in limited time. But still, you wouldn't usually associate Trey Turner with a 34-year-old, platoon first baseman. So it's interesting.
When you look into the pitcher's viewpoint, when you lose someone like Rendon in your lineup, you start pitching people like Soto differently. You attack them more, throw them a lot more junk, and you start pitching them differently because you don't have that depth in the lineup.
Yeah, big point. As far as the Mets go, I got to see it to believe it. They're so dysfunctional culturally, and it starts at the top. Somebody always kind of, pisses on that organization at a critical time with some stupid behind-the-scenes move that you don't really know about. They got a lot of talent, but they really came on strong last year. And with that stat with the blown saves, they might have won 140 games without the blown saves. But I got to wait to see them do that to be considered a contender and then pull it off. I'm a big believer in you've got to do it before you can be projected to do it. And I would say that the Rays would have been a lot more dangerous if they hadn't and we know why they do these things, but if they hadn't had to jettison Pham and Avisal Garcia, that hurt. I don't think Renfroe replaces that. They put a lot of stock in that. Is it the Korean player? Or
Tsutsugo, Japanese, I believe.
Japanese player. I mean, if he pans out, then I'll have egg on my face. But the one thing the Rays always have, they've got youth. They've got an amazing farm system that they can call on at some point, and they've got a pitching staff that is as good as any of the major leagues.
Well, their pitching staff actually got a little injured over the offseason. They lost Glasnow.
Well, Glasnow's going to be healthy for 2020, but but really though, the big threat here for World Series talks is the Dodgers. So I think lineup, you have to go LA just because they have the best hitter. They have Cody Bellinger, and the stats are so close with all the other players and the talent levels of all the other players. I just give the Dodgers the slight edge because they have the better player. Although if Judge gives us a full season, he might be right there with Cody Bellinger. And then I look at pitching though, and even though the Yankees lost Severino, they may very well have a better rotation than the Dodgers. If you really dig in at the numbers, James Paxton's FIP is exactly the same as Clayton Kershaw's FIP at 3.86, and Paxton actually strikes out 2 more per 9. Then you compare Garrett Cole to Walker Buehler. Well, Garrett Cole's the second, 1 or 2 best pitchers in baseball. He's better than Walker Buehler, so the rotation for the Yankees might be better. And then you look at bullpen, it's definitely Yankees. What are your guys' thoughts, Yankees-Dodgers, if we get to that point?
I feel like the lineup aspect, I feel like it's completely arguably,
it's up in the air, basically,
yeah. You see someone like Max Muncy, can he repeat? You see someone like Bellinger, he's one of your great hitters. But I feel like the Yankees might have a little bit more depth. I feel like it's definitely up in the air. Pitching-wise, I feel like Cole's definitely the number one in the league. You see someone like Tanaka, great in the postseason. Paxton, like you said, the FIP and the Ks per 9 looks really good. And the Dodgers lost Ryu, which he had a great year. Who knows if he repeats it?
Yeah,
and that's behind Buehler and
David Price. So they acquired David Price in the Mookie Betts, but you look at David Price, his postseason stats other than the 2018 World Series, because even before the World Series of that year, he struggled in the ALDS and ALCS. So Tanaka's great in the postseason. Price isn't. That's why I give it to the Yankees.
Yeah, I mean, plus Kershaw is historically horrendous in the postseason. And it is a situation where potentially having a heavy right-handed lineup
might work out.
If 2 of your top 3 guys are lefties. I mean, David Price has had I think 6 or 7 good innings against the Yankees in the postseason. Every other time he gets his butt kicked.
And when you throw out Price, who knows what Gary's going to do?
Yeah, Gary's saying.
He's the only person that Gary can hit against.
Exactly.
Well, guys, this was great. I mean, we got to finally hop on a pod together. I've been doing these for years, through high school and everything, and we finally got an opportunity to do something like this together. Stuff like this in the future. And for this edition of Strictly Sports, I am Jacob Brown, and we'll see you next time.